So this is the intro to finance course. And just as a brief introduction, I'm currently a freshman at Bergen County Academy's Academy for Business and Finance, as you can see here. And the reason why I chose this academy is because ever since I was little, I was always very intrigued by business, but it's kind of an obscure topic and it's not really covered in a lot of schools. I know for some middle schools um there are economic courses, but that wasn't the case for my middle school, unfortunately. So that was kind of something that I wanted to learn more about, and that's the reason why when I came to BCA, I just chose Academy for Business and Finance, ABF, immediately with no hesitation. And I understand what it's like to want to know about finance and business in general, but you can't do so because there isn't a formal course for it. So that's the reason why I am now at One World Anchor, so I can help you not go through the same trouble that I went through in middle school. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, now moving on, next slide. Okay. So firstly, let's just go over some basic principles. So my belief is that in order to learn anything, before you learn, you have to establish some ground rules or some basic vocabulary so that you can talk about it the most efficiently. So at the beginning, it may be pretty boring, but I promise if you continue learning about these vocabulary words, you will begin to realize that they're all applicable in daily life. In fact, this is one of the things that I like about finance. It's that as you begin learning, you sometimes realize that finance is really just putting what you already do and the financial practices that you already do into words, so you can relate to them in your daily life. And now, so firstly, what is economics? What is this that we're studying about? So the official definition is economics is the branch of knowledge concerned with the production, consumption, and transfer of wealth. But what exactly does that mean? So translated into everyday vocabulary, that basically means that economics is when you learn about how people make and give money to others. So an example would be if I started working and I made some money, that would be economics because I am producing money. If I went to the store and bought something, that also would be economics because I am using money, which is consumption. And that's also transfer of wealth. And if I deposited money into my bank account, that would also be economics because I'm transferring wealth. And you may be wondering, why is economics important? So there is this quote here that says, economics is too important to leave to the economists. And at least in my personal opinion, I think that economics is important to everyone. The top reason is because we all need money to survive. That's just something that we cannot live without. We all need money to survive. So, and unfortunately, we have some limitations regarding money. So I wish that I could have all the money in the world, but unfortunately I don't. So what can I do to get around that? The thing that I can do is to manage the money and make sure that my money is being put to the most productive use possible. So that's basically economics. It's about how to use money in the best way possible. And you don't have to have a lot of money for economics. As long as you're using your money in the best way possible and your money is being spent the most efficiently, you are doing economics properly and you are putting economics to good use. And needless to say, our world revolves around economics because, as I said, everyone needs money, right? So every single person needs to be able to manage their money properly to be able to survive, basically. If you decided to use all your money to buy this house that you can't afford, that would be bad economics, and you're probably not going to have enough money to cover other expenses and to survive. And economics also is a good field to go into. obviously you don't have to become an economist, but there are tons of professions and jobs that has to do with economics, such as analysts, financial advisors. In fact, some companies actually hire people just to teach them how to use their money most efficiently, because this stuff definitely is not easy. It's not easy to be able to do everything you possibly can with the money that you have. And in general, economics is important for just living a good life, because as I've said, you have limitations and you need to find ways to use your money to get away those limitations. So you need to be able to live on a limited income. So that means that you need to be able to live a good life, right? Because if you have enough money to spend, then you will be living in a good life. And now continuing into the next slide. So so living a good life, I will just continue to expand on that. As I've said before, our entire world evolves around economics, and that means that we all need economics to live a good life. So this is actually a motivation point for me as a fun fact, because whenever I'm learning economics and I think that something is hard, I try to remind myself that I'm learning how to live a good life, and this is actually practical. And just for the next segment of the presentation, I will stop sharing briefly and I will continue in a second once I switch the slides. Yeah, okay, you should be able to see my screen. There was some lag before. Okay, so what is economics? Okay, so now continuing, now we're moving on to some basic principles of economics. So there's some basic principles that everyone needs to know. The first one is the definition of profit. Profit is revenue minus expenses. So what does this mean? Revenue is basically the total amount of money that you're making. And now a common misconception is that revenue is the same as profit, but the two are actually different, because what you make is not necessarily what you take home. Profit is what you make, what your company as a whole generates, but revenue is the money that you get to take home. So if I made $5, that doesn't mean that I will get to take all $5 home. Because why? Because there are some expenses. Expenses are money required by business. So you need a certain degree of money to operate as a company. And profit finally is the money made. So just as an example, let's say if I were operating a ice cream store, for example, right? If I made $500, it doesn't mean that I would get to keep all $500 and bring them home, because to operate the ice cream store, I need to hire workers to work for me, and I need to pay them. I need to pay the rent for the house that I'm using. See, there are many expenses. So maybe at the end of the day, I would only get to keep maybe $200, because I spent $200 giving it to the workers, and I spend another $100 paying the rent, right? So here's just an example problem. If a store made $100 per year and it cost them $60 to start up, how much has the store actually made? You can type the answer. It's okay if you don't know it, but you can type the answer in the chat if that's okay. Wait for 1 minute. Yes. Someone already said the answer. Yes, it's $40. And good job. And you can derive this from this formula, which is revenue minus expenses. So they made $100 and it cost them $60 to start up, and the store actually made $40. So this 40 is because there's some expenses such as you need to pay rent, you need to pay income for the workers, right? So just because you make $100, it doesn't mean that you get to take $100 home, because you need to pay this $60 for other things. Okay, let's move on. Okay, the next idea is opportunity cost. The cost of choosing one alternative over another when you're losing out by choosing. So in economics, there's this idea of sacrifice. When you're making a decision, no matter as sad as it seems and sounds, no, when you're making a decision, no matter what you do in a decision, you are losing out on something. So even the best choices come at a price. And this is just illustrating this. So as an example, if I decided to, if I decided to do my homework instead of playing, right? Obviously this is a right decision. This is the right thing to do. But technically, from an economic standpoint, I am still losing out because I'm not able to play games anymore, right? I have to do my homework and I'm not able to spend time playing the games that I like. So even though I'm making the right choice, I'm still giving up something. So in economics, all decision, it's basically you deciding what you want to give up and what you want to keep. Okay, and now here's another problem. So Katie decides that she wants to do her homework instead of playing video games. What is the opportunity cost of this decision? And I actually use this example. The opportunity cost is all the video games that she could be playing. So she does homework, right? And obviously that's the right thing to do, but she's not playing video games. So that's what she's giving up by her decision. And now moving on to the next slide. Here's just a method. So we must evaluate the opportunity cost of each decision. So you may be wondering at this point, if there's a sacrifice anyways, then how do we know what to do, right? So the way that economists figure out what to do is that they look at the sacrifice for each decision. So if you look at a decision as two roads, right? You go on this road, something happens, and you go on this road, something else happens. So what economists do is that they essentially look at both roads and see what it's like to go on both roads. So for this problem, it would be if Katie were making this decision and evaluating the cost of each decision, Katie would think like this: if I do homework, I'm going to be able to get good grades, but I will be missing out in terms of the things that I could do that are fun, right? I wouldn't be able to play video games if I'm doing homework. But if I play video games, I will be having fun, but I will be sacrificing the homework that I could be doing. So essentially, what Katie has to decide here is what is more important, homework or video games? And she has to decide which one she wants to keep and which one she wants to sacrifice. Now, the next economic idea are the factors of production. So in total, there's 4 factors of production: land, labor, capital, and enterprise. So factors of production are basically the things that you need to do business. Every single company needs, in most cases, they need all 4 of these, but yeah, but they definitely need at least one of these 4, and even that is an understatement actually. So factors of production are basically what you need to keep your company going and what you need to start a company. So firstly, you need land, because let's say if I were to start this ice cream store, I'm just going to stick to my same ice cream store example, right? So if I were operating an ice cream store, I need a place to sell ice cream. So I need land, right? So I have to have this place that I can set my store up on. And the second factor is labor. So labor is basically the workers. If I were the CEO or the boss of the ice cream store, I can't do all the work myself. So I need some other workers to do the work for me, to operate the daily affairs at the ice cream store. So that will be labor. And the next is capital. Of course, capital is extremely important. In fact, this is the reason why we need economists to do these calculations. It's because in order to operate my ice cream store, I need to be able to have money to start this business and to hire the workers as a part of the labor and to buy the land, right? So capital is in fact the root of all 3 of the other ones, because you have to have money to buy the house that you sell ice cream in. You have to have money to hire the workers who do the scoops for you and who do the customer service. And now the last idea is enterprise, which I haven't covered yet. So enterprise is the ideas. So you need ideas to be able to have an ice cream store. Even if I had money, I still wouldn't be able to start an ice cream store if I didn't have the idea of an ice cream store, right? I could be starting a gas station or something like that, right? Or a huge company. So I have to have the idea for starting a ice cream store. And now it's the problem. So a startup is looking for investors. Which factor of production is this startup attempting to tap into? You can just type your answer in the chat, but it's okay if you don't know it. Yes, we have one answer. Yeah, two answers actually. So the correct answer is capital. And capital is basically the money, right? So when you're looking for investors, why does a company want investors? A company want investor, it's because let's say if I was starting an ice cream store and I needed, let's say $100,000. I'm not gonna have the $100,000 just lying around in my house. So what I need to do is I need to convince rich people who actually have the $100,000 inside their houses to come to me and to give me that money because they think that my idea of an ice cream store is good. So it's a way to have the money, right? So that's the reason why it's capital. And I will get into investment and what investors are exactly later in the course. But for now, on the most basic level, it's basically someone who believes in your enterprise or your idea and is willing to put in money for it. Next slide. It's the idea of specialization. So specialization is that each party is able to produce something most efficiently. So there's this idea in economics that every single party, so a party could be an organization or a country, does something better than something else, right? I'm pretty sure this is the case for every single field, not just economics. For example, you may be good at soccer, but you may not be good at basketball. So you specialize in soccer in this case. No one is good at everything. And just the same idea, no country or organization is good at producing every single thing. So an example would be Taiwan specializes in microchips. What this means is that they're able to produce the most amount of microchips most rapidly and with the least costs possible. And tons of countries specialize in different things. For example, if I lived in this town where there are 10 ice cream stores, right? And basically every single person works at an ice cream store and they're all good at serving ice cream. Then I could say my town specializes in ice cream store because every single person here makes ice cream, right? So this is specialization. And you may be thinking, why is specialization important for global? Wouldn't you want to be able to produce everything yourself and be self-reliant? Like you don't need other countries to help you do the trade. The answer for this is because trade is the most efficient. So what is trade? I'm pretty sure we all have had trade without realizing it. You definitely did trade before. You just don't know the official economic word for it. So have you ever had instances at school where you say to your classmates, hey, give me that apple and I give you this banana because I like apples and you like bananas, right? That right there is actually trade. In fact, it's impossible that you don't do trade because buying something is actually a trade. Think about it. If I went to an ice cream store to buy ice cream, then I'm giving the ice cream store money for the ice cream that they're giving me. So essentially, it's the same as apples and bananas because I'm giving the store money, the store is giving me ice cream. So we're essentially just trading stuff. And why does this tie into specialization? Okay, let's continue using the banana and apples example, right? You have a banana. So that means that you specialize in bananas because you're the one who has the banana, right? And the other person has the apple. So that means that the other person specializes in the apple, right? So they're able, so the most efficient thing to do here would be to trade, because each of you are getting what you want. Same thing with the ice cream. I specialize in the money, and the ice cream store specializes in the ice cream. So trading would get us both what we want. It's mutually beneficial for the both of us, because I'm giving the store money, which is what they want, and they're giving me ice cream, which is what I want. And if you take this on a more international scale with different countries, then you can see that different countries can gain the most. So for example, let's say if, well, this is actually kind of true, but let's say if the US was the most efficient in producing computer parts and electronics, and we wanted to trade with Taiwan over electronics, right? So this is mutually beneficial, because the Taiwanese, they want our electronics and our products, whereas we want their microchips. So we're both getting what we want in this case. And now moving on to inflation. So economics can be good, but can be both good and bad, actually. So, and the reason behind this is because there is inflation. Inflation is the bad part of economics. So, and inflation is basically a decrease in how much money is able to purchase. So there's an idea that if you think about it, the value of money basically lies in how rare it is, right? Why do we like the green bills? Think about it, they're basically green pieces of paper, right? So why can't I just take one piece of normal A4 sized white paper and use that as money? It's the same thing. They're both pieces of paper, just with different colors. The answer, it's because money is rare. It's like if I could walk into the store right now and pick up this whole box of A4 white paper, right? But I can't walk into the store and just buy a box of money, right? And dollar bills, right? So money is rare. You can't get it. That's the reason why it's valuable. And let me put this into everyday lives. If something is rare, then that increases its value. So for example, let's say if there was this pencil that was extremely expensive. It only there's only one copy of this pencil in the entire world. There's only one of this in the entire world. So it would be extremely expensive, right? Because every single person wants to buy it. At least all the people who have enough money to buy it wants to buy it. They're like, oh, this is one single pencil, and I feel so special owning this pencil, right? But imagine if this pencil had, let's say, 1 billion. There were 1 billion pencils like this in the world. Would this pencil still be with the money? It doesn't matter if I can't have this pencil. It's not the only one in the world anyways. So now back to the topic of inflation. Inflation is basically when money loses its quality of being rare. So here are just some photos illustrating what inflation looks like. These right here are all dollar bills. So these things right here are all dollar bills, basically. If you look, these things, they're all dollar bills. These are basically money. But why do these people not care about money at all? If you look at it, this guy has got an entire cart of money, and these children are playing with money like wooden blocks, because in whatever the country this is, money has become like paper. It's so common that it's not worth anything anymore, and the trade begins to break down. Now, using the ice cream store example, why would I need your money? Why would I need you to give me money if I already have an entire stack like this at home? If I had an entire stack of money, then I don't need any more money. You can keep your money, right? So what this does is that things become more expensive. So if every single person had money, right, and I find that my whole stack of money does not buy anything anymore. Because even if I had this whole stack of money, every single person has the same stack of money. So every single person does not need others to do business with them. So what this essentially does is it creates a cycle where every single person has enough money. So every single person does not need to do business, but so that every single person cannot earn money, so that every single person needs to increase costs. I know it's complex, but for now, on a simple level, inflation is basically the idea of prices raising. So the number one way to spot inflation is when prices increase to absurd amounts. So using my same example as pencil, right? So let's say right now this pencil costed $5. It's a very, well, it's not a normal price, but in the fictional world, let's say if this were a normal price for a pencil, $5 for a pencil like this, right? But what if the person who's selling the money selling this pencil, I'm sorry, had an entire cart of money at home, and they don't need any more money anymore, right? So what do? They raise the cost of this pencil to $20. Originally it was only $5, and now this pencil is $20, just because the owner or the seller of this pencil now needs $20 to buy whatever stuff they want. So this is another characteristic of economics. It's that a lot of times society functions as a whole, and it's just on a cycle. If the owner of this pencil decided to raise the price of this pencil to $20, and you wanted to buy this pencil, but you do not have $20, so what would you do? You would go to your store and increase the prices of the things that you sell to $20 too. And before you know it, the entire society would raise the price of stuff by $20. But their income is not going to go up because no one's actually going to buy this $20 pencil. So they're not able to make money. So they're not able to buy things. So it's all a bad cycle. And the whole reason behind inflation is because the government printing too much money. There are other reasons for inflation, but this is by far the most common one. It's that the government prints too much money. It prints so much money that it's not rare anymore, that there's no point in money. If every single person had a $1 bill because the government decided to give a $1 bill to every single person in the country just for free, then that $1 bill is not worth anything anymore because it's not rare anymore. Okay, so the second part of the class is supply and demand. So what exactly is supply and demand, you may be asking? So supply and demand is essentially, it's divided into two parts. So firstly, it's supply, as the name suggests, supply and demand. So let's go to supply first. So supply is what the company has to sell. So it's what the stuff that the company has to give to the customers. So I'm going to use my same ice cream store example. So ice cream store example, right? So for the ice cream store example, the supply here would be the ice cream, because I have to have ice cream to be able to sell it, right? So I'm storing this ice cream inside that's my supply. That's what I have, right? And it varies based depending on production. Now, if you remember about the factors of production, right? So there are multiple factors that affect how efficiently you're able to produce. So in terms of production, it depends on the amount of money that you have and the amount of land that you have, how much you're able to produce. So for example, using my ice cream store example, if I have $10,000, then I'm probably going to make some ice cream. But what if I had $20,000? Then I have more money to make ice cream, right? So it's connected to the factors of production, and you can use this to review what the factors of production are. So those definitely play a role in the supply. And it's actually also affected by demand, and I will cover what demand is in the later chapter. So next slide. The next slide is demand. Okay, so essentially demand is the want. It's what customers want specifically to have the product. So let's say if I were going into the ice cream store, right, to sell ice cream, and some customers come in. Here, the customer demand would be ice cream because they came into my store to purchase ice cream and they want to walk out with ice cream in their hand, and they should if I weren't scamming them. So firstly, it's the want, and you can see this icon right here. It illustrates that this person is wanting to pay money for the products. And again, this is one of the things of economics. You find that concepts are dependent among each other. Remember how I said that when you buy things, you're effectively just participating in a trade. You're trading money for the product. This right here, this icon right here actually illustrates this trade really, really well, because in fact, I should have put that on the side with the trade, but it's okay. So this person is willing to give money for the products, right? So it's a trade that this person gives money for the products. Anyways, the demand that this person has in mind is for the drinks, the food and the drinks. And the second characteristic of demand is that it has a direct relationship with supply. So demand is connected to supply. It's, in fact, it's actually really, really connected, because how are you going to buy ice cream from my store if I don't have ice cream? You cannot buy ice cream from my store if I don't have ice cream, right? Furthermore, if I see that customers like my ice cream, then I'm going to produce more of the ice cream, right? If I saw that the customers were buying my ice cream every single day, of course I will be happy and I will produce even more ice cream and increase my supply to make sure that everyone is able to buy ice cream that they wanted. The next thing is, it also depends on price. So from a customer point of view, let's say if you were going to buy, let's say, a bicycle, if you walk into Target with this thought of buying a bicycle, right? Your demand for the bicycle depends on price, which means how much you want the bicycle depends on how expensive it is. Let's say if it were a $20 bike, right? You'd be like, oh, no problem. I can just buy it. It's not that expensive. I want the bike. I like it. But what if that you misread the price tag and it actually said $1,000? What would you think about buying a $1,000 bike? You would have more hesitation before buying. You would hesitate. Is this actually a good choice? Man, I want the bike, but it's a tiny bit too expensive, so I'm not going to buy it. See how your demand, how much you want the bike just changed based on the price. And this is actually something that all companies need to consider when they're selling something. It's that they can't make their product too expensive, because if they made it too expensive, then nobody's gonna buy their product, because there are gonna be too many people who are like, well, I like it, but it's kind of expensive, so I'm not gonna buy it. So that's the reason why, like, you have to remember to keep your price down, because you may think that if I rose the price, then it's going to generate more income for me. It's going to make me more money, right? Wrong, because that means that less people will be buying your product and demand will go down. And you want to have high demand for your product. Moving on to the next one about the law of demand. So the law of demand is basically a pattern of what I already said about demand. It's just putting it into words. As price goes down, demand goes up. And you can take this the other way as well. As demand goes down, price goes up. This is an important concept because there are later slides that are prevented. Maybe 5 minutes later, we'll cover this as well. So using my bicycle example, if the price goes down, it goes from 1,000 to 20, then demand goes up. You're going to want the bike more because you're actually able to afford the bike. But what if price went up? Your demand is going to go down. If price went up from 20 to 1,000, then you're going to want the demand less. So you can take this the opposite way and it will still work. The $200 and $1,000 example applies to this as well. And I'm moving on to the law of supply. The more demand there is, the more supply there also is. So this is actually tied with the law of demand as well. Because think about it, if I were the people at the ice cream store and every single person wanted to buy ice cream, then I would increase my supply, right? Because I wanted every single person to buy ice cream. But if nobody was buying my ice cream, then I would not produce as many ice cream, or maybe on a most extreme scale, I would close down my store because I'm not making money because people aren't buying ice cream. And you can actually cross apply this to the law of demand because everything is affected by price. If you think about it, we can say that when price goes down, supply actually goes up. And why does this make sense? It requires a jump in logic. So we already established that price going down means demand goes up, right? And what happens when demand goes up? Supply also goes up. So we can say that when price goes up, when price goes down, sorry, supply also goes up instead. So just to put this into a thing you can visualize as an example, let's say if I was selling ice cream or bicycles, bicycles went down. The price of bicycles went down to only $20, right? So there's going to be a lot of demand for bicycles. And what happens when there's a lot of demand for bicycles? More people are going to buy it. And what happens when more people buy it? I'm going to not produce more bicycle, but I'm going to put more bicycle on the shelves for people to buy. So it's a process. It's a chain of events. That's the more accurate term. So we can say that when price goes down, when it becomes cheaper, supply goes up. The seller is going to sell more of the product. Now moving on to the demand and supply curve. This is essentially a way to visualize basically what it's like for demand and for supply and demand. And I will spend some time explaining the components of this because it's quite hard to understand if you just saw this once. So the thing on the left is a demand curve. So I will annotate. So this right here is a demand curve, right? And it's actually used to form a proportion between price and demand. And if you recall, when price goes down, demand goes up. So when the price is set at $2, all the people are like, oh, this thing is too expensive for $2. I'm not gonna buy it. So what's the demand? Zero, because no one bought it, right? But then the next day I came back and I was like, oh, no one bought this thing. So what am I gonna do? I'm gonna lower the price slightly so that more people buy, because when price goes down, demand goes up. And how many people bought it today? One person bought it. I'm like, this is slightly better than yesterday, but it's still bad. and I want more people to buy my ice cream or bicycle my ice cream. So what do? I raise my price even more, and I raise it to $1, and now two people buy it because they're like, this thing, it's not extremely cheap, but it's moderately cheap for what I'm able to afford. Then on the last day, I decided that I was going to, the last day on this graph, hopefully not for my company, but the last day on my graph, I decided I was going to lower my price even more and sell it for only 50 cents each. And now the people are like, oh, this thing is really cheap. It's so good. So it's only 50 cents. So they're gonna buy 3. And if you notice, so a common misconception is that if you raise the prices, you're going to be making more money, right? And remember when I said it was not, right? Now look at this pattern. This day we only made $1.50. What do we make in the last day? We also made $1.50. See, there's no difference. There's no difference at all. So what this basically means is that your price has nothing to do with how much money you make. Raising the price does not mean that you make more money. And in some cases, it could actually hurt the number of money you make because look at the first day. We sold the thing for $2, and how many people bought it? 0. So how much money did we make? 0. So on the first day, we didn't make any money at all. So price has nothing to do with demand and the amount of money that you make. And now all we have to do is to graph this. I'm not sure if you learned about graphing in math, but I'm just going to explain the graph anyways. So, and I'll explain it in detail. So for the first one, this right here, this column is the price, which is how much it costs. And this right here is the quantity. I don't really like quantity because I think it's a confusing word. It doesn't match with what they called it before. So I'm gonna replace this with demand. Just look at this column as if it were demand. So how many people bought it? So on the first day, our price was $2, right? So our price was $2 right here, $2, and 0 people bought it. So no one bought it. The demand right here is 0. And on the second day, we lowered the price slightly, and we got to $1.50. So $1.50 for each of this. And how many people bought it? All you have to do is go to this dot and come down here to where it says demand. 1 person bought it. And then on the next day, we decided to lower it even more to $1. And how many people bought it? 2 people bought it. So better. And 50 cents matched the point D. And it came down and 3 people bought it. So this is the supply curve, demand curve, sorry. And now we're gonna move on to the supply curve. So the supply curve is, remember I said supply it's how much you have to sell, and it's tied with the price. So the lower the price, the lower the supply, because less people are willing to buy it. So you're gonna see this pattern right here, and I won't do an as in-depth of an explanation as previously because you get the gist of this. So on first day it was sold for $2, and the supply was $3, was 3. So I had 3 of the things that I was selling. On the second one, price was $1.50, and now the quantity that I have available to sell is $2. And finally, on the third day, the amount of money that I have is $1, so my quantity is 1, and so forth. And on the last day, I sold it for 50 cents, and the supply was
Ooh.
0. So as you can see, it's directly correlation. The more price that I have, the more supply there is. Yes. That's basically the law of supply. And I think it's about time. So I will continue in this next time. Well, I guess that's it, everyone. Thanks for coming. And if you have any questions, feel free to